Gabby Finlayson. Gabby, what are you doing?
I'm so tired of our country taking years to get stuff done. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Oh, I don't understand. Why are you being hostile to us?
Because I'm tired of you.
So unless you have been living under a rock, which, hey, no hate, you have probably become aware of this multimillionaire Kevin O'Leary Shark Tank guy forcing unwanted gigantic data center on Utah normal folk story. This story has absolutely just blown up online, and for good reason. These normal-sized data centers that they've already been building all over the country have been wreaking havoc on local communities, and now they want to build a gigantic one in my backyard. A hyperscale data center to mog all data centers. It's going to be awful. It's going to choke our skies to death with emissions. It's going to boil away the natural environment. And of course, it's all Utah taxpayers subsidized. Of course it is. Everything terrible is funded by my tax dollars, apparently. And it's also somehow gotten really personal, but I'll explain that a little bit later. This hyperscale Stratos project went from a completely unknown hypothetical to nightmare reality in just weeks. This story's got dramatic meetings, it's got gaslighting, it's got doxing, it's got red scaring, it's got multiple scandals, it's got sandals, and most importantly, it's got, in my opinion, Utah's most egregious land grab operation in its history. Well, actually, maybe the second most egregious, because the whole pioneers in the natives that used to live here, that was the worst. This is the second worst egregious land grab in Utah's history. And on top of all of that, this story has been evolving so fast. Every week has brought multiple new head-turning, eyebrow-raising developments that has made it damn near impossible to stay on top of. In short, there's a lot going on in this story, goddamn. And it's also incredibly important to stay on top of all of this, despite how complex and confusing it's gotten. I've got 27 pages of information in front of me, goddamn, and it's really important to understand all of this information. So, because I love you, I have decided to become something of an expert on this data center project. I have spent the last month poring over hours and hours of commission meeting footage, of picking through and rifling through 20 years of relevant articles about all of this stuff, so I can then compile everything that you could possibly need to know into one large, but hopefully digestible, video on the subject. One might call it a hyperscale data-centered video about the hyperscale data center. Huh? No? Okay.
You stink!
If you watch this video from start to finish, you will also be an expert, and you will have every piece of information you could possibly want about this project. And because I'm so damn considerate, I'm going to edit the description of this video to include time codes to the various chapters of information, in case you already know some things but don't know about others, and you just want to skip to the parts where you can maximize your time. You don't have to rehash knowledge that you were maybe already aware of. With that said, every time I thought I was completely on top of some information regarding this project, I'd learned some new thing, and it turned into a rabbit hole. So genuinely, I would recommend just watching the whole thing. But if you're pressed for time and you only want to learn about one thing, time code will be edited for you. I'm also going to source all the articles that I pulled this information from, and I'm going to include some helpful links if you want to get involved and get organized to help stop this thing. So, just to be clear, this is going to be a factually accurate but incredibly biased, vulgarity-strewn video. I hate AI. I hate just about everybody involved in this story, but I love Utah. I think it is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. The ghost of Hey Duke possesses me every time there's this annual news story about someone threatening our lands here, and I just get fired up beyond belief. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it. The information is accurate, but I'm gonna be leveling with you. This is not an unbiased take. If you were looking for like a clinical, dry, completely neutral exposition dump, this ain't it. So I'm putting my bias out on the table for you in the spirit of just being fully transparent. If you are a supporter of AI, or data centers in general, I still want you to watch, because maybe I'll win you over. The information is factual, I am biased, but this story has so many twists and turns, I genuinely think, even if you are an AI superfan, that you might be second guessing after watching this video. So with all of that said, let us finally begin. Get really comfortable because I'm gonna yap at you all serious like for a while here, or maybe turn this on in the background while you get your kids' dinner prepared, because by the time I'm finished with this video, you'll be sending them to college. It's quite a lot. Okay, so what even is the Stratos project? Well, as you may have surmised by now, it's a data center. What's a data center? A facility used to house computer systems and associated components such as telecommunications and storage systems. Data centers are critical infrastructure for the storage and processing of information, cloud services, machine learning. This is basically where AI lives. Data center developers make money by leasing all of this computational power to AI companies who connect via fiber. Why are data centers becoming controversial? Well, because they suck. Almost 50,000 residents in Lake Tahoe are about to lose power because the utility company is redirecting that energy towards a data center. That's just one example. While they're sucking down that juice, they're causing the utility prices for those people to soar. They're also guzzling billions and billions of gallons of water to cool all that computational hardware. They're big, they're ugly, they are light polluting, they are air polluting, they are water polluting, and for all of the fuss going into building one, they don't even create that many jobs, aside from the temporary construction ones, when they're all said and done. And it's not just data centers that are facing increasing resentment. People are becoming disillusioned with AI broadly.
Time magazine selected its Person of the Year for 2025, and this time it was the architects of artificial intelligence. Interesting.
The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution. Only a few years ago, AI was not a factor in our lives.
Companies that bought into the hype and laid off a bunch of their workforce in favor of AI have been quietly making moves and plans to rehire their human workforce that they got rid of. Generative AI slop text and video has infected every corner of the internet and has us all questioning what's real and what's not. In fact, even in the making of this video, AI was a huge problem. The Google search AI that you can't remove routinely produced conflicting information when I was trying to learn more and research about this project. The resistance to AI and AI infrastructure is real. Hi, I am the resistance, it's me. So, what makes this Stratos project data center different from all the other ones? Well, if built, it will be the largest data center in the entire world. And it's also going to save us from China or something. I'll get to that later. According to the Box Elder County website, where the Stratos project will be built, the Stratos project area, or Wonder Valley, is a proposed 40,000 acre development in West unincorporated Box Elder County focused on large-scale energy generation and advanced data infrastructure. Now, many of you have probably seen this image already at least once. This is a map of the Stratos project area. All 40,000 acres of Wonder Valley. I have no clue what that tiny section by the highway is for. I don't trust it. Neither should you. No, but seriously, even when specifically asked, people that have been pushing this project have refused to clarify or answer what that smaller section is for. I have scrubbed hours and hours of meeting footage. I assure you, it is a complete mystery. Recently, however, the developer has finally put out a map for this middle area here, so let's go to their website, check it out, and maybe we'll see what their sales pitch is while we're there. And the first thing that you're gonna see on this website is their lazy slop promo video.
There's a valley where technology and nature will come together in perfect harmony, where the future will pulse at every turn. A valley where wonderment and modern technology dwell. Wonder Valley, the single largest AI compute data center park on Earth. Nestled quietly amidst a sanctuary of forest land.
They're gonna ruin the country just to make more slop videos like this. I hate AI.
With trails, wildlife, recreation, and beauty. Let's shape the future together.
I guess you can just say anything you fucking want if you have enough money. Perfect harmony with nature. Give me a fucking break. Also, if you are slightly confused, there is another Wonder Valley up in Alberta, Canada, currently undergoing permitting. I guess it was too much work to put into their AI prompter to include some desert scenes for their new data center project that's in a desert. Anyway, in any case, let us see if they support this impossibly high claim of perfect harmony. Actually, no. I've already noticed another mistake on their website. Resources efficiency? You mean resource efficiency? It's so lazy. It's so lazy. I feel like I'm being mocked. Let's just go to the Box Elder County fact sheet for the rest of this. This is genuinely pissing me off. Let's look at the map that they uploaded and then we'll leave. Here's the proposed layout of that middle section. 60, count them, 60 data centers arranged in these little aborted Tetris shapes. Each group of 10 creates a 1 gigawatt digital campus, 6 natural gas burning power plants, and a proposed 500 megawatt solar array. And then the fucking gift shop. Not really, but maybe. Let's go for a walk in downtown Wonder Valley. We can look at the windows and some shrubs. I figure we can safely assume the other large area of the Stratos project will look pretty similar to this, between 30 to 50 more data centers and more gas-burning power plants. And again, this tiny third area, a total mystery. One guy thinks it's going to be a car wash when I asked on the Box Elder County Facebook group. Respectfully, I don't think it's going to be that, but go off, King. In any case, entirely too many goddamn buildings in my wilderness for my taste. Back to the Box Elder County website now. The site will have integrated on-site energy production to avoid strain on the public grid. Up to 9 gigawatts of power generation in Utah. I must really stress how much energy 9 gigawatts actually is. A single gigawatt is a billion watts, which can power anywhere from 700,000 to a million average American homes. The Stratos project at full build-out will use 9 gigawatts per hour, constantly. New York City uses about 50,000 gigawatts a year. The Stratos project at full build-out will use 78,000. Holy shit. And where is this power coming from? Ruby Pipeline, major natural gas corridor. Built during the big shale gas boom in like the 2010s, this pipeline carries natural gas from Wyoming to Oregon. Instead of pulling from the grid, it's just gonna burn enough natural gas to double our state's emissions. But who cares about that? Am I right? Actually, everybody I know cares about that, especially me. That much power generation, that much natural gas being burned, will be catastrophic. For you out-of-staters, let me explain. Utah is renowned for our gorgeous red rocks and our illustrious and eye-catching snow-capped Rocky Mountains. Most of Utah's population sits at the base of this mountain range, with the highest concentration of people being in the Salt Lake Valley. You get views like this here. Isn't that nice? Unfortunately, you also get views like this here. This is pure air pollution. Utah is roughly bowl-shaped, geographically speaking, so unless we get a lot of wind or rain, all of the pollution in the valley runs up against those mountains and then gets trapped here. And it's especially bad in the wintertime. At least once a year, we have the worst air quality in not just the entire country, but literally in the entire world. That is a terrible record for Utah to have. Most of this is just from Utah's own industry, Utah's own traffic, but often wildfire ash, even wildfires from out of state, choke our skies out with ash. It's not good. Now let's just imagine, I don't know, if we built a facility right in the middle of that consumes more power than New York City? Yeah. What could go wrong? As of the posting of this video, none of the technical information about the kinds of technology that's going to be used, especially for these natural gas burning power plants. So from that, it's hard to make an accurate prediction of the kinds of pollution that we can expect. However, Utah Clean Energy, a nonprofit, has provided some estimates for us based on the most commonly available natural gas burning technologies that we have. CCCT, or RICE, or RICE. Got my math glasses on. If the Stratos project uses combined cycle combustion turbines, vastly more common method, CCCT, we can expect to see 30.2 million tons of CO2 a year, increasing Utah's total greenhouse gas emissions by 55%. O'Leary Digital is going to do a fucking backbreaker on the Paris Climate Accord single-handedly. This is so bad. It will produce 1,857 tons of NOx a year, more than 5 times the current amount Box Elder County produces. What's NOx? Think of NOx like noxious. These are nitrous oxides. These are precursors for harmful smog like ozone and particulate matter like soot. These are of course linked to cardiovascular problems, respiratory problems, and you know it, you love it, premature death. Love it. What about the RICE method? If they use reciprocating internal combustion engines, we might see as much as 41 million tons of CO2 and 12,000 tons of NOx. So not exactly an improvement. Now, why the hell would anybody pick the RICE method over the CCCT method if it pollutes way more? The answer is it uses way less water. The RICE method uses much less water than the CCC. Fuck. But we'll touch on the water here in a bit, so just hold on to your britches. So back to the fact sheet. Existing fiber infrastructure for data connectivity. Utah does have a pretty good fiber infrastructure, actually. Google Fiber was being set up here as early as 2013, and there's Utopia also, which is a fiber network that's run and operated by a few different cities, even as far north as Tremonton, which is the closest largest population center to this proposed Stratos project. So Utah is uniquely desirable for this reason, for this big Chungus project. Proven geotechnical conditions for large-scale development. Data centers are the cheapest to operate in areas that have cool, dry climates. Deserts are still viable because the land itself is just so cheap, and you can still get that cooling using adiabatic cooling, which is using water to cool all these computer systems. We're gonna get to the water stuff in a minute, so just hold on to your britches. Located outside Wasatch Front Air Quality Non-Attainment Area. My understanding is this. In Utah, a region's air quality is considered in attainment, good, if the air pollution percentage, if the AQI, whatever it is below a certain threshold. If the air pollution, the AQI, is above a certain threshold, it's considered to be non-attainment. So what they're saying is this. In addition to the toilet in the bathroom, they're gonna put a toilet in the living room. So now the whole house gets to smell like shit. Love it. Let's just make the whole state look like Fallout. Perfect. Proximity to workforce in Brigham City and Tremonton. People who are gonna build this monstrosity, who are gonna work at this monstrosity, will likely come from the surrounding area. 2,000 jobs, by the way, aside from the temporary construction ones. All of this environmental havoc, all of this to serve AI slop, all of that for 2,000 jobs. I just think that's such bullshit. Designed to minimize community and environmental impact. Okay, here's the section you've all been waiting for. Designed to minimize impact according to what? There's been almost no technical information that has been released about this project other than the amount of acreage that it's going to take up and the amount of energy requirements it's going to have, which again is 9 gigawatts. Here's what they have put down concerning water, but again, no specific data has been released to justify any of these claims. Just bear that in mind. This is all just totally vibes-based. Gas generation, air-cooled heat exchangers, zero evaporative loss. Data center, advanced closed-loop cooling systems? Did they mean advanced? instead of advance? What is with these typos? With on-site heat rejection to the atmosphere, recycles treated water with very low evaporation. Again, no evidence has been provided. No water studies have been conducted. There is also an aspect to this closed-loop water cooling technology that is apparently something of a limited time offer, but we'll touch on that a little bit later because it's not on the fact sheet, but bear with me. Uses only existing water rights attached to the property. Less net consumption than current agricultural ranching use, creating a net benefit for the Great Salt Lake. Okay. Let's take a closer look. Again, we have so few concrete details to verify any of this, but here's what we know for sure. I'm gonna get my math glasses back on. If they use rice power plants, they're gonna need 2 billion gallons of water a year to operate. If they use CCCT plants, they're gonna need 16 billion gallons of water to operate. Just for your information, this water is just for the natural gas power plants. The data center also needs water, and there's been no clarification if this closed-loop water system is just for the data centers, if it includes the natural gas power plants, or if the natural gas burning power plants are not going to be in that closed loop and they're going to need to ingest water to operate. No clarification whatsoever. And that bit about less net consumption, I also find to be very suspicious, because elsewhere on the fact sheet, they say this: it would exclusively use on-site water, which is too salty for human consumption or agricultural use. So it's going to be less net consumption because it's going to be using less water than ranching and agriculture currently uses, but also apparently nobody is using that water in the first place? So which is it? Is it going to use less water than farming, or is nobody using the water in the first place? I would love to know. Mind you, these two pieces of conflicting information are on the same webpage of the Box Elder County website. It's unbelievable. The water consumption is such a massively important detail, and unless they come out with studies and technical information about the technology they're going to be using, everything they're saying right now about how little water it's going to use is just like magical corpo speak. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that this hyperscale data center project really will have the most perfect closed loop, zero evaporative loss water cooling system. The salt water will never corrode the pipes enough where they spring a leak. Nobody in this facility will wash their hands or flush their shits. It will be at a perfect aquatic equilibrium. You still have to fill this system at least once, and that water simply must be ingested from the surrounding environment. Even if it reuses that water perfectly for all time, it must still take from the watershed at the beginning. Anywhere from 2 billion to 16 billion gallons or more. Who knows? So what's the problem with that? Not only is Utah facing a severe drought right now, look at the size of the Salt Lake. Look how small it's become. More like the not-so-great Salt Lake. This data center won't be piping water from the Salt Lake, but rather intercepting the streams and rivers that fill the Great Salt Lake. I cannot imagine a world where that creates more water for the Great Salt Lake, like they keep claiming. I just cannot imagine that. Meanwhile, for the last 2 decades, there's been almost no meaningful movement on Capitol Hill to try to restore the Great Salt Lake's water levels, besides asking us to pray. It's so stupid. So while they're doing nothing to address this incredibly preventable problem from getting worse, they are instead ramming this data center project down our throats as quickly as possible. They have never moved this fast on any environmental issue before, but you want to put a big, giant, polluting data center in the middle of our valley, they will stop at nothing. They will move like Usain Bolt to get this thing built. It's so stupid. They're focusing all of their attention on building this data center as quickly as possible, which in the best case scenario is a net neutral. But physics has entered the chat. There is almost no mathematical possibility where this data center is a net neutral, and is in fact probably going to be quite the opposite, because even if they use a closed loop system, the heat that is being generated still has to go somewhere into the ground, into the air, into the water, into the valley itself. The heat alone is going to have a massive ecological impact that I had a really hard time wrapping my head around. So let's talk about the heat for a sec. Robert Davies, physics professor at UVU, points out that there will not only be waste heat from the data center, from all these closed-loop cooling systems, but also from these natural gas power plants. In the process of converting that natural gas into energy, there are waste products: CO2, soot, NOx gases, and of course, heat. With this in mind, he speculates that the Stratos project would be dumping the equivalent of 23 Hiroshima bombs worth of energy into the immediate environment every single day of its operation. That much energy during the daytime could raise temperatures by almost 5 degrees. The difference between 65 and 70 is pretty massive. But at nighttime, the difference could be as high as 28 degrees hotter than normal. That is unfathomable. That is going to be ecological havoc. And what does a temperature increase like that mean for a desert environment like this? Ben Abbott, ecology professor at UVU, had this to say after reviewing Davies' estimates. That's the difference between Utah's semi-arid climate and the Sahara Desert. This would absolutely change the landscape. According to these professors, evaporation in the area is going to spike massively. The dew point itself could actually disappear entirely, which wildlife in the area desperately relies on. This is almost guaranteeing a Dust Bowl situation because all of the water that is trapped in the soil, in the plants, is just going to boil away, and there's going to be nothing keeping it to the earth at that point. Even if this data center isn't directly piping water from the Great Salt Lake, this heat dome is just going to expedite the drying of the lake that we're already seeing. And speaking of the Dust Bowl, you do not want to live in Salt Lake City when the Great Salt Lake finally dries up, because not only will that send metric tons of dust into the atmosphere, much of that dust is actually literally toxic in the form of mercury and arsenic. Yeah, some serious shit. And for what? For a data center? Fuck off. Millions of migratory birds would lose an essential habitat. The brine shrimp would be functionally extinct. The lake effect that helps our mountains get that snowpack, which then seeds the rest of the state with essential water, would essentially be gone. Entire industries would die. Ecosystems would die. People will die. I don't want to use the term apocalyptic lightly, but I can't think of another word that more adequately captures the sense of what would happen if the Great Salt Lake dries up. All of that toxic dust, the lead, the mercury, the arsenic, flowing over to the Salt Lake Valley, unable to escape because of the Wasatch Mountains, and then just hovering over the most populated urban centers in the entire state. This is a terrible idea. And the fact that the data center is on the tongue of all the Utah leadership, but the Great Salt Lake drying up is just like this thing. They ask us to pray for water. I hate it here sometimes. We're gonna have to save ourselves because they're not gonna do it for us. So yes, in what world has this hyperscale data center project been designed to minimize impact on communities and the environment? What a disgusting lie. And if you were wondering why they're trying to ram this through without any ecological reviews or studies, this would probably be why. And we're not even done with all the selling points on the fact sheet yet. I know I keep saying bear with me, but we're nearly there. Hold on. Long-term national defense, energy resilience, and economic development. National defense, huh? The famous calling card of all infamous political developments. To be honest, I think this was a bit of a tactical blunder on the part of the developer to include like a national defense angle for this data center project, because right now the biggest ways that governments are using AI is to facilitate mass surveillance, and no sane person likes or wants that. The US government is essentially directing computational power from data centers, cloud computing, to sort through tons and tons of data collected from satellites, collected from data brokers, even from social media, all sorting for things and people of interest. So all of that data that they've been harvesting en masse since the Edward Snowden days, they are now getting tools that's going to help them go through that data more efficiently than ever before, thanks to this technology. If we don't out-police state China, America will lose. That's the argument. The Department of Defense / War is also tossing around the idea of truly autonomous death machines, killing robots with literally no consciousness whatsoever. And if that doesn't horrify you on its face, then let me remind you what level of intelligence AI is currently working with.
How many R's are in the word strawberry? It's for a really important spelling bee.
In the word strawberry, there are 2 R's. So good luck with your spelling bee.
Awesome, thank you.
There are 2 R's in the word strawberry.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. The letters are STRAWBERRY. 2 R's.
Isn't that 3 R's?
No, it's definitely 2 R's.
Strawberry has 2 R's in it.
Are you sure?
Absolutely sure. There's an R after the T and another one near the end, so 2 R's it is.
It's 3 R's because it's one after the T, and then in the word berry, you know that word berry? There's 2 R's in berry.
I get what you're saying now. You're counting the berry part as if it had 2 R's on its own.
No, I'm not counting it as if it had 2 R's. It has 2 R's.
You see, AI is not intelligent at all. In fact, it's performing no logic whatsoever. What AI is doing when you ask it a question is basically to guess, and it informs that guess based on the massive amount of information that's been fed to it, from scraping websites, from archives that have been uploaded to it, and then it turns that guess into a confident-sounding declaration. Artificial intelligence is such a misnomer, but anyways, the energy resilience argument is also so ridiculous. I highly doubt much, if any, of that massive energy is going to find its way back to the public grid. But maybe there's an aspect to this that I'm not understanding. So let's hear from somebody directly that's pushing this data center project. Let's let them explain what this project is for and how the military may benefit from this, energy-wise.
So you mentioned once talking about the purpose of the project. And I'm a little vague on that. Can you help me understand really what the purpose is?
MIDA is involved because we are involved in projects that have a clear military mission because of the energy deficiency that the country has. This will provide a segue into the energy compute and data storage that our military needs. This will help the energy, the lack of energy, and it's just the start. It's just the start, and that is the full military mission, and why MIDA is involved is because we can give this opportunity to Utah to bring independent energy to the state.
Sorry, but what the fuck was that? What are you even saying? So this is a military project. This is going to increase our energy resilience because the military needs energy, and this project will provide energy. Sorry, is there a military base in Utah without its lights on right now? What are you even talking about? The government wants to use AI. They need data centers to use AI. That part makes sense to me. But this energy resilience argument makes no sense to me. Are they going to route power from this data center to military bases? I thought it was going to be off the grid. Or is there actually no specific use case at all, and this is just some kind of vague gesturing at the energy independence arc that the United States has been on the last 25 years? It's so dumb. The economic impact argument, in my opinion, not that much better. I already mentioned the dismal amount of total jobs that this whole stupid thing is going to create when it's said and done, just 2K as a reminder. But it's not always about the jobs. Sometimes it's about the taxes. So, we are about to get into the most boring part of this entire video, but it is still really important, so don't click away. Now, just to preface this, you've probably already identified me as not exactly somebody who looks like a top-rate accountant. More of a vibes guy than a numbers guy. So just bear that in mind as I'm going over this stuff. I don't want anybody coming at me like I'm presenting myself as the tax master.
Are you being audited?
My math glasses back on. Box Elder County is expected to see $30 million in the initial phase of the project and more than $100 million annually when the data center project reaches full capacity. The developer has committed to $16.2 million to be paid upfront to offset initial impacts on county budget. And wait, what's this? Partner with local university school district to build AI curriculum? Okay, anyway, any necessary infrastructure will be funded by the developer, so no additional taxes, fees, etc. will be collected to fund anything to do with Wonder Valley. Now, just for context, the Box Elder County budget approved for 2025 was about $76 million. So, $30 million, that's a lot. With $16 million being provided up front to offset any of the costs, like, that's a big deal. That's not nothing to a small community like this. That sounds like a nice little payday. Except, this project has been afforded some massive tax breaks, so that 30 million figure is actually nothing compared to what Box Elder County ought to be getting under normal circumstances. A standard 6% energy use tax has been reduced to a mere 0.5%. So they get to double the emissions for the entire state for a mere half a percentage point. That's a screaming deal. It also gets to avoid property taxes. The developer instead gets to use a letter of completion, which would be a 1.2% tax on the site's value. But for some reason, they don't want to pay a full percentage point for fucking anything, so that small amount has already been reduced further to, what is it? 0.926%. 0.5 for the energy, 0.9 for the property. A 92% reduction in the energy tax and 80% reduction in the property tax. Because we don't have a lot of the numbers available yet, it's really hard to say specifically how much money Box Elder County is missing out on, but it's enough to know that this is a lot. And on that note, of the tax revenue collected at that rate, 80% would be directed to O'Leary Digital. Yes, because of course a project that is essential for American national security must also funnel 4/5 of the tax revenue it generates to a foreign multimillionaire. Love it. Okay, we are finally done with Chapter 1, the project overview, and it is now time to explore the important characters in this story. The villains. I'm talking about the villains. Let's just jump in with the one that everybody knows about. You know him, you love him, Kevin O'Leary. He likes to call himself Mr. Wonderful, which is why this Wonder Valley name keeps popping up. First of all, such a red flag if you have to tell people that you're wonderful. It's like the nice guy situation. If you have to tell somebody you're nice, you're probably not nice. Anyway, so cringeworthy. So he's the loudest voice that has been pushing this data center project forward, but also a part of the story is how weird and defensive he has gotten over criticism about this data center and how it's been moving forward. I'm gonna get to everything. But first, here's him crying over buying an ugly watch.
It's magistry.
Obviously, that didn't have anything to do with anything. Can you tell I hate this guy? Anyway, most of you know Kevin O'Leary from the show Shark Tank. People come up to like a pantheon of investors, they try to sell them on their idea, you get the picture. But to be a rich guy on a panel, you must already be rich. So how did he do it? Let's get to it. In the 80s, he started a company called SoftKey. Basically, SoftKey rose to prominence because they mass-produced shovelware edutainment type games, and as they accumulated capital, they would then buy other edutainment games, slash the prices of those products, reduce their crews to skeleton teams. He basically single-handedly killed the edutainment industry entirely. Eventually, SoftKey buys The Learning Company, which is another edutainment type game manufacturer, for a cool $606 million, and then took on the name The Learning Company for itself. After this, after absorbing all of these different edutainment companies, Kevin then turns around and sells the entire thing to Toy King Mattel for $4.2 billion. This, however, has been described as one of the worst mergers of all time. Mattel's stock price fell by $3 billion in a single day. Shareholders actually filed a class action lawsuit against Kevin and Mattel's executives for essentially pumping up the numbers to make this deal look a little bit better than it was. Mattel ended up settling that lawsuit. Kevin O'Leary, of course, denies everything. So yeah, man's basically soloed the entire edutainment industry single-handedly. Susan Schilling, the vice president of the Minnesota Education Computing Corporation, one of SoftKey's acquisitions, had this to say about him. He had an interest in earning money. I am not sure he had a desire to help children learn. No shit. Since then, he's basically become a venture capitalist, and he's one of the main forces behind this Wonder Valley project in Utah. Now, as I mentioned before, there's actually another Wonder Valley, which was started in Canada in 2024, and somehow the promo video for that one is even worse than the promo video we already saw.
There's a valley where technology and nature will come together in perfect harmony.
The hawk, the perfect harmony. And is it just me, or is the audio almost the exact same? Did they just copy and paste the audio from the old one to the new? I don't know. So yeah, that's the general background on Kevin O'Leary, one of the main forces behind this data center project. I hate him for that, but also I hate him for a personal reason. Unfortunately, he's family. That's right. I'm an O'Leary too. Want proof? Here it is. Here it is. There's the proof. Also, the information about the height is accurate. Ladies. Anyway, that's stupid. But no, I have to say, it has been so weird to see my family name be the subject of so many angry chants and protest signs. It's really weird. The O'Learys in Utah had a really good thing going until Kevin O'Leary showed up to just fuck everything up. So I'm working double time to try to shore up the general O'Leary family name, but he's making it incredibly difficult because not only is he pushing this data center project, the way that he has been reacting to the resistance is just awful. Rather than just take the W and vanish and go away into the background when the Box Elder County commissioners, despite thousands of very loud protests, approved his Stratos project, he had this to say instead.
What's happening in Utah right now is we think over 90% of the protesters are actually not people that live in Utah or Box Elder County. They're being bussed in. And so people live in Utah aren't stupid. They see this happening and they realize, why am I letting people from don't even live in my state make decisions for me? And I don't think it's going to work out for them.
Why? Why is this always the lie that they trot out? I got accused of this exact same thing almost 10 years ago. The very first town hall I ever protested at was for Chaffetz, or rather against Chaffetz. He was in the process of trying to reduce the size of our public lands in Utah, Bears Ears National Monument. And of course we had to politically spank him and tell him to keep his hands off the damn place. And he had the exact same thing to say. Apparently, everybody that disagrees with you is just a bussed-in paid protester. Coincidentally, I had not heard a peep from Chaffetz in probably the last 10 years, except I saw a tweet where he came out in support of the Stratos project. So I guess it's a birds of a feather type of situation for scum of the earth. In any case, I was at that Box Elder County Commission meeting. I can confirm to you that I was not paid. She's empty. I got some coins in there though. I was not paid to be there. I didn't see any buses dumping off, you know, angry liberals or whatever. It's such a stupid lie. And of course, this is part of why this story got national attention, because this was such a ridiculous, baseless claim. But rather than take the backlash on the chin and just shut up, he decided to double down.
Who would want us to stop building our electrical grid? Who would want to stop us from having compute capacity to develop AI? Which adversary would want that? There's only one. It's China. So we dug in. I got my guys to go a deep dig into the IP addresses, and here's what we found out. This is fascinating. We found 2 cells inside of Utah. Alliance for a Better Utah. Taylor Kanosh maybe, and Josh Cantor. Who are you guys, and why are you spewing all this misinformation out? Elevate Strategies, also a cell operating inside of Utah. Gabby Finlayson. Gabby, what are you doing?
Chinese sleeper cells? And even worse, flip-flops with a suit? Why even wear the suit when you... Never mind. But no, he decided to dox local organizers instead of just shutting up, which is obviously the smartest thing to do in this situation. My pet theory for the flip-flop thing is he puts his foot in his mouth so often it just was easier to wear flip-flops instead of the whole goddamn shoe, because he tripled down.
This is irrefutable. This is Form 990 from the IRS. Now, it's done through a whole bunch of clandestine different entities, and I've traced every single one, and I'm going to publish it today.
He said he was going to release evidence to the public that these young women, these organizers, are like Chinese sleeper cells, and obviously that never happened. But here's how this particular part of the story ends.
I have the IRS filings that show they took money from Arabella, funded by the Chinese, Neville Seville. I handed it over to the government.
So rather than publish this information for everyone to look at it to verify it, he decided to apparently send this straight to the White House for their analysis. The common man, myself, we will never get to know what this bombshell evidence was that these Chinese sleeper cells are the only reason there's pushback against this stupid data center project. It's unbelievably stupid. This whole thing is so fucking stupid. I hope for anybody that's convinced by this argument that we need this AI technology to defeat China or something can look at this stupid Chinese sleeper cell discourse and then extrapolate that maybe it's all bullshit. Besides, the most threatening thing in this video so far has been Kevin's fashion choices, so maybe you should pipe down a little bit. You know what else sucks? Kevin O'Leary is not the only one pushing this China phobia angle to promote data center construction. This is Governor Cox of Utah. He launched an AI initiative earlier this year and also a Built Here campaign, which seeks to speed up development and increase energy exports. In completely unrelated news, Governor Cox will take every opportunity to offer his fully throated endorsement of the data center project, even in the middle of a drought declaration. Yes, that really did happen. It's kind of hilarious.
As far as the data center, again, what I will say is this data center is going to use less water than the current water use. So this will actually return water to the lake. And so that, again, there are issues that people should be concerned about for sure. Water is not one of them.
But he's not just a pro-AI, pro-speedy buildy guy. He's also a nice guy. He has something to teach us about how to disagree with each other better. He even wrote a whole book on how to do just that. Anyway, here's him calling you stupid for wanting to slow down the data center project.
I'm so tired of our country taking years to get stuff done. It's the dumbest thing ever. We think that taking time makes things better or safer. It absolutely does not. You get a chance to give your feedback and then decisions get made.
He's supposedly neutral about data centers, by the way. So what's his role in all this, besides just being an asshole about the Stratos project? He met with Kevin O'Leary in January of this year. In that meeting also was Senate President Stuart Adams and maybe Speaker of the House Schultz? I'll explain the question mark a little bit later. So it's pretty obvious to me that this meeting was about the data center project. We don't know officially, but I mean, come on. Cox's very odd, very vocal support of this data center project has me speculating that he either has something to gain from this politically or, as some are speculating, financially. Now, coincidentally, Governor Cox comes from a family that owned and then sold a successful telecommunications company called Centricom. Centricom specializes in providing fiber to these new hyperscale data center projects. It's something that they need to send information very quickly. While they no longer own the company, there are still family members of Cox's family that are involved in that business. As far as we know, as of the date of the posting of this video anyway, there has been no discernible proof that is demonstrating Governor Cox, Cox's family, or Centricom will specifically financially benefit from this Stratos project. I have heard this as a rumor. I have seen posts online, especially on Facebook, about this. Right now, it's important to note that this is strictly just rumors and speculation. I have seen it often enough that I felt like it was worth covering in this video, but to date, as of now, there's been nothing that has come forward that concretely connects these pieces together. But just for your information, that is what some people are saying. But do keep a close eye on Cox in the meantime, because for somebody that is allegedly neutral about data centers, he is going really hard for this data center project. So keep an eye out. Howdy. This is Brendan from the future, obviously. Unfortunately, the video, I took too long to work on it. It was so fat, it took me too long, and now important things have happened after I stopped recording that I now have to record more information on the cell phone and then insert it into the video. I'm not going to turn on the whole studio lights and microphone and setup. Not doing that. You're just getting a cell phone video. But I still have to fill you in. The video is no longer up to date unless I do this, so here I go. Just the other day, following weeks and weeks of pretty much relentless pushback, Governor Cox has started to sing something of a different tune when it comes to the data center. First of all, he stopped taking every chance he can get to plug the damn thing, and he recently threw MIDA under the bus, saying that the rollout was not good. We'll take our wins where we can get them. And just the other day, he issued an executive order demanding for protections for the environment, for the Great Salt Lake, from data centers. I don't know how much this executive order is actually going to change things, and as of the posting of this little video, the Stratos project is still going forward, so clearly the pressure is starting to take its toll, and I think this is hopefully a sign, a signal that if we keep it up, we'll get even more and more concessions until one day we ultimately emerge victorious. So just wanted to record that quick update. You might see me again later in the video. Who knows? I do. You definitely will. Goodbye. MIDA. Okay, so this is the rabbit hole section of the video. MIDA stands for Utah's Military Installation Development Authority. Formed in 2007, its express purpose is to work with private companies on developing military land deemed underutilized and provide economic support to the areas around these developments. The governor appoints 5 voting members and 1 non-voting member. The Senate President appoints 1, and the Speaker of the House appoints 1. Each member serves a 4-year term. So 8 members total, 7 being able to vote on which projects move forward and what those agreements look like, etc. So, voters have virtually no say in who these people are, or have any way to approve or disapprove of their projects. They may be elected officials, but they are not elected to the MIDA board. So these guys have military land in their pocket, and they are approaching companies, developers that may otherwise be able to develop this land and turn it into some kind of economic benefit. The company or companies make money, and so does MIDA in the form of tax revenue, which MIDA can then use to build roads, utilities, other public infrastructure under their domain. And even after the private companies come in, MIDA still acts as the ultimate land use authority. The only catch for these private companies that want to work in these MIDA project areas is they have to have some kind of military benefit or purpose beyond that tax revenue. In exchange, the private companies and developers get access to all kinds of amazing financial incentives, such as massive tax breaks, they get government bonds, which are essentially government loans, bypass local zoning laws, environmental reviews, etc. This is all coming from Utah Code section 63H-1-202 for you policy wonks out there. And some support to the military, by the way, does not mean significant support to the military, and you will understand that distinction very clearly in just a minute. So it's essentially taxpayer subsidized development with virtually no accountability, electorally speaking, from the voters in the areas where these projects take place in. Now, in the beginning, MIDA was functioning in a way that I'd actually consider pretty reasonable. Here's Falcon Hill, MIDA's first big project. The outlined space is the project area, and right next to it is Hill Air Force Base. With $10 million invested from the state, MIDA developed this zone and allowed office buildings with mostly military R&D companies in there, and then some retail and commercial businesses alongside them. Tax revenue that this area generates goes to the state, which then helps fund repairs and infrastructure improvements for the base and other military facilities. And last year, the generated revenue was just shy of $9 million. So presumably, this project has been going on 20 years. It has well recouped that initial investment cost. Honestly, hell yeah, this strip of land, not exactly what I would consider a idyllic natural landscape. It's just the space between the highway and the Air Force Base. I don't feel like this is necessarily a huge loss for nature in the grand scheme of things. Jobs were created, tax revenue was created, the military support angle is pretty clear and straightforward, and the land that was used for the project pretty much all already belonged to the military. So I fuck with this Falcon Hill project, actually. Of course, over time, MIDA has departed from these somewhat modest, humble beginnings and transformed into something that I would consider to be completely parasitic on the communities that it shows up in. The Deer Valley East Village expansion project is, in my opinion, when their, we'll call it mission drift, became most noticeable. This is a bit of a tale, so I hope you heeded my earlier advice about getting comfortable. Now, I'd actually heard about MIDA almost a decade ago because I used to be a journalist up in Park City, actually. A tiny, utterly inconsequential outfit, but I was a journalist nonetheless. But long before I was ever a journalist up there, the Air Force wanted to replace some kind of tiny military recreational lodging that was destroyed for the then upcoming Winter Olympic Games in 2002. From what I can find, this Hill House Lodge had anywhere from 6 to 11 rooms, so it's small, but it's not nothing. Jim Hansen, a retiring representative at the time, was approached to help find a replacement. The Air Force identified some BLM land in Park City for a hotel, called the Red Maple Parcel, and set him on a path to secure it for them. Apparently, talks did not go well. Park City had some long-term plans that incorporated this land as like a natural, naturey kind of space, and they didn't want a big fat hotel on it. Now, Hansen alleges that they eventually hit him with a "we don't want your kind around here" sort of remark, referring to the military. So in retaliation, he snuck language into the 2001 Defense Authorization Act that just gave the Air Force this Red Maple parcel. Okay, so first of all, that's crazy. Second of all, does this have much to do with MIDA right now? No, it does not. It does serve, however, as a reminder that the Utah leadership has always been incredibly entitled when it comes to public lands. So, I just thought that was an insane detail I had to include in this video. Anyways, this is not exactly great news for Park City officials, so they decide to buy the Imperial Hotel, which had about 11 rooms, and remember, the lodge that the Air Force lost had anywhere from 6 to 11, so it's either double the capacity or the same capacity of the lodge that was destroyed, and tried to offer that to the Air Force as a trade. The Air Force just says, no, we want a big fucking hotel, so negotiations continue. This is around the time that MIDA gets involved in this story. For years, nothing but meetings are happening about this proposed military hotel and this Red Maple parcel. Meanwhile, Wasatch County, the county just next door, was in the middle of plans to develop the area right next to the Jordanelle Reservoir. Extel, a New York-based development company, was preparing to build a luxurious four-season Mayflower resort, with plans to eventually lease the land to Deer Valley, which people in Utah will know is a fancy ski resort. Wasatch County officials proposed taking on this MIDA hotel project instead. They felt the opportunity to offset a bunch of potential property tax increases to fund all this development was worth a conversation with MIDA. Finally, in 2012, MIDA, Wasatch County, and Extel, the development company, officially enter an agreement. Extel donates about 14.5 acres to MIDA for their military hotel. MIDA is now the land use authority for those 14.5 acres. Meanwhile, Extel continues buying more land in this area for their Mayflower resort. What happens next I can only describe as a hostile takeover of the Jordanelle Reservoir. By 2020, the MIDA project area, which originally was again 14.5 acres for a single hotel, had now exploded into 6,800 acres. Extel continued to buy land, working with MIDA in the Utah State Legislature. They practically took over the whole area, and eventually they did get that partnership with Deer Valley. Now, when the Utah State Legislature got involved, that facilitated this MIDA project area expanding so much, Wasatch County officials were not happy, because as more land is going to this MIDA project area, less taxable revenue is going to fund their schools, their EMS, their roads. You get the drift. And the Utah State Legislature didn't get involved for no reason. From my understanding, Xtel became frustrated with what they perceived to be a slow permitting process for their resort expansions, so they petitioned the Utah State Legislature and MIDA to help facilitate a transfer of this land from Wasatch County to MIDA. So MIDA could then use their special MIDA powers to both speed the project along, issue fat government bonds, and create tax breaks, which would allow a bunch of infrastructure to be built essentially on taxpayer money. All of this to help for-profit businesses. Now, just to be clear, this is my personal speculation as to how this happened. I can't confirm any of this. This is all being informed by a KPCW article from 2019. That is, of course, linked below, so you can peruse that as well. But I feel like this is a pretty compelling explanation. Now back to the facts. MIDA subsidizes all the necessary infrastructure improvements to this area to the tune of $274 million. This money is coming from a TIF, which is a tax increment financing program. So what does that mean? Well, in this case, MIDA and Xtel, the developer, are going to siphon away 75% of the property taxes away from Wasatch County, so away from schools and stuff, to fund the infrastructure for this resort development, like ski lifts and snow machines and the like. Actually, it's going to be 40 years, because in 2020, the Utah legislature passed a bill giving them a 15-year extension. So 40 years of 75% of property taxes being diverted to MIDA and this project area in Xtel. And on top of that, this Deer Valley expansion project has already gotten over $500 million in government bonds. So holy shit, MIDA and the Utah State Legislature are managing to work the local taxpayers over for millions of dollars in subsidies for this development company. And the cherry on top of all of this, remember that stipulation that MIDA project areas have to have some kind of military benefit outside of the tax revenue? Service members get a military discount on 100 of the 400 available rooms at the Hyatt Hotel in the Deer Valley expansion project. Doesn't that seem insane? Millions and millions and millions of dollars for the military purpose of discounted rooms in a hotel? And I just want to point out another important detail, because there's an aspect to this story that I think is not getting as much news coverage as I would like it to. I feel like I'm slowly losing my mind covering all of this, and I just need to know if I'm the only one going crazy. The Falcon Hill project, as a reminder, was about 600 acres, and that land was directly adjacent to the Hill Air Force Base. This MIDA Hotel project, which again was originally going to be 14.5 acres when it was in Wasatch County anyway, has ballooned to over 6,000 acres. Literally none of that land ever bordering any kind of military installation was never originally any kind of military land. Wasn't like an abandoned depot or a bunch of warehouses. It wasn't like a strip next to the airfield. It was just beautiful mountainside at one point. Just because they got a donation of land from a developer, they now can expand and take over half the goddamn mountain? How does that make sense? Now, the 40,000 acre Stratos project? I want you to guess how much of the land is owned by the military already, and how much of that land is private property, wholly unrelated to the military. Take a guess. You're wrong. I know you're wrong, because there's no fucking way you would have guessed this. In the 40,000 acres of the Stratos project, currently, only 1,200 of those acres is owned by the military. Less than 3% of the entire thing. When I hear Military Industrial Development Authority, I think Falcon Hill, developing land on an Air Force base, opening it up to some taxable revenue. When Kevin O'Leary says this
MIDA designation is about taking military land and almost repurposing it for the benefit of the nation.
I'm supposed to think it's just a military wasteland that's being turned into something useful and productive. But that is not what we are seeing here. We are seeing outrageous, egregious land grabs of property that never had any military purpose ever. How is it possible that a non-elected government agency can just gobble up tens of thousands of acres with no accountability from voters whatsoever, all to funnel taxpayer money towards private companies? Yes, MIDA is getting some of that revenue, the state's getting some of that revenue, the counties are getting some of that revenue, but come on, let's be real about the for-profit incentive here. Speaking of that profit incentive, MIDA is under no obligation to try and get a good deal for the state or the local community. None. The Salt Lake Tribune has obtained some emails via open records request about the Stratos project, which essentially demonstrates that MIDA was advocating on behalf of Kevin O'Leary and against the people of Box Elder County. There's some really fascinating reporting from the Salt Lake Tribune about all the back-end negotiating that was happening, so I highly recommend checking that article for yourself. So just a quick recap of this section so far. MIDA is a non-elected, mostly governor-appointed board. MIDA seeks economic opportunity with land that it owns or leases. Companies that partner with MIDA gain massive benefits in the form of tax breaks, advanced development timelines, and all the company has to do is offer some kind of military support. So that's MIDA broadly. It's also important to know who's on the MIDA board specifically, so let's get into that. Chairing the board, Utah Senate President Stuart Adams. Who appointed him to the MIDA board? Himself. He appointed himself to the MIDA board. Just think that's kind of interesting for reasons that we'll get into in just a bit. The rest of the board: Senator Jerry Stevenson, Weber County Commissioner Gage Frower, whatever. Clearfield City Mayor Mark Shepard, Executive Director of Veterans and Military Affairs Gary Harder, lobbyist Mike Ostermiller, and Executive Director, Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity Jeff Moss. These are the people responsible for making this hyperscale data center project a MIDA project. But let's focus on old Stewie Adams for a second, the chairman. First of all, what a tiny face. Anyway, he's Utah's top lawmaker. Republican, obviously. He's been in the news relatively recently for two major reasons. In 2024, he faced calls for resignation after it was learned he helped create and pass a bill that may have indirectly helped his 18-year-old granddaughter, who had been arrested the year prior for these crimes, which I will not say out loud for YouTube algorithm reasons. Horrible stuff. In 2023, after he learned his granddaughter had been arrested and charged, he called up his buddy, Senate Majority Leader Kirk Cullimore, and an attorney to complain about how state code allowed for a high school student to be sentenced to decades in prison for a, quote, stupid mistake. Is it just me, or is that kind of sounding a lot like Brock Turner's dad for the whole ruining my son's life for 20 minutes of action quote? It's really gross. Anyway, Kirk Moore then sponsored legislation that effectively allowed 18-year-olds to be treated as 17-year-olds in such cases, effectively reducing the penalties for these kinds of crimes. The entire time the bill was being written and discussed and passed, the only people that knew of Adams' conflict of interest was Kirk Moore. While the bill was not literally retroactively applied, it is heavily speculated that this law did facilitate a subsequent plea deal, which allowed his granddaughter to spend less than a single week in prison. That's so horrible. Adams has defended his actions by saying this bill was done ethically and morally perfect. So perfect that for some reason he faced calls for resignation. The more recent controversy, however, does have everything to do with MIDA. Stuart Adams is currently fighting off primary challengers for re-election. His PAC took in $135,000, all from separate donors, just days after the Stratos project was approved. These donations all came from individuals and companies that have directly benefited from MIDA's project area in the Deer Valley East Village expansion. This basically doubled his war chest overnight. While there's no explicit proof, I feel like this is a pretty clear case of either political bribery or these entities more or less signaling that they want in on the Stratos project as well. And you know what else? This exact same controversy happened in 2024. Adams got a massive donation from Extel, whom you will remember has benefited massively from the MIDA project area near the Jordanelle. And the last thing that I think really stinks about all this, he appointed himself to the MIDA board. And now businesses associated with MIDA projects have seen his campaign festooned with cash at least twice now. Also, I submitted a records request to MIDA to confirm that he really did appoint himself to the board because I could not find any publicly facing information regarding that. And they got back to me, and this is crazy. He is not only appointing himself to the board, he's also giving himself little positive affirmations in the third person at the same time. This story's incredible. Dear Senate President Stuart Adams, I hereby appoint you to serve on the MIDA board. I appreciate your willingness to serve in this capacity, and I'm confident your experience will be valuable to the council. If you have any questions or concerns regarding this appointment, please do not hesitate to contact our Chief of Staff, Mark Thomas. Sincerely, myself. Hello again, it is Brendan from the future. What up? Things are not that much better than they were back when I recorded this, but they are slightly better. Stuart Adams issued a public letter to Kevin O'Leary asking for a reduction in size of the Stratos project by 75%. I think this is great news because it does signal that they are feeling the pressure, and if we can keep it up, who knows what other concessions we might get. This letter, I don't think did anything. I think Kevin O'Leary has more or less said he's going to take it into account. Hello again. This is another even more future Brendan coming in. I cannot believe my update from the future required an additional update from the future, but apparently some big news. This letter that Stuart Adams sent has gotten a response from Kevin O'Leary, and he has agreed to reduce the size of the Stratos project by 50%. And I believe this reduction will completely eliminate this third other floating area. Is this a win? 100%. However, this is just a reduction in the size of the project area. The actual facilities, all of the pollution, all of the energy requirements, my understanding is that has not changed whatsoever. The only thing that has changed is how much land is being set aside for this Stratos project. So all of the pollution is still on the table, all of the energy requirements is still on the table, just the actual size of the property will be shrinking. So there you go. Hopefully I can post this fucking video and not have to do this again. Anyway, I'm out. Bye. This obviously doesn't absolve Stuart Adams. He is still incredibly culpable and one of the main driving forces behind all of this. It is a great sign. It is a sign that the tides are changing, and we should definitely keep up what we're doing, which is keeping on the pressure. Just a little update from the future. So, future Brendan out. Peace. Now, speaking of suspicious behavior from Utah Congresspeople, let's talk about Utah Speaker of the House, Mike Schultz. Schultz, primarily through companies that he owns, possesses around 25,000 acres that's near the Stratos project. Could he stand to benefit if the value of this land goes up because of that data center? Sure, certainly. With that said, most of this land was owned long before the Stratos project was a thing. However, 2 parcels of land, 600 acres, just a few miles north from the Stratos project, was purchased in late 2024 and finalized early 2025. This would overlap with that meeting that I told you about that Governor Cox, Kevin O'Leary, and Senate President Stuart Adams was in, presumably to discuss this Wonder Valley project. Here's that clip.
You know, Governor Cox, Speaker Schultz, these were the team, you know, President Adams. I met with them only 5 months ago, and they said, we can do it in Utah.
Here's another clip a few months earlier where Kevin O'Leary mentions meeting with Utah leadership about this data center project.
The way we build these is we build them in stages. So we're looking for large tracts of lands that we can permit that have the water, have the fiber, have everything we need. And you have to find the right leadership in a state to do that. So in this case, 3 different senators and Governor Cox were all working together to make this happen.
On the governor's website, we can see that Cox and Kevin met on January 8th. Is this the meeting that everybody keeps referring to? The weird thing, Mike Schultz denies being at this meeting, and that he was also completely blindsided by this Stratos project. While that is certainly possible, I find it really weird that Kevin O'Leary would lie about that or misremember that. And additionally, as the Speaker of the House, Schultz has the authority to appoint MIDA board members, so he already has an official connection to MIDA already. To Schultz's credit, he has publicly called for more studies to be done about the Stratos project, about its potential environmental and economic impacts, and he says he doesn't love it. So there's that. And for the final MIDA-connected person in all this, let's talk about Jerry Stevens. This is mostly just an excuse for me to play this hilarious clip from ABC4, but you need the context first. So, Jerry Stevenson, sitting Utah congressperson, is on the MIDA board, also owns a nursery, approves the Stratos project, people get mad, try to boycott his nursery, ABC4 shows up to ask him about this development, and here's what happened.
You know, this whole thing is such a bunch of baloney. Right. Just leave.
Well, hold on.
Leave.
I spoke to Andy. Can I just tell you what Andy said?
No, I already know what Andy said. Just get your butt out of here.
Wait, hold on. I don't understand.
Leave.
Why are you being hostile to us?
Because I'm tired of you.
I love this. For one, you can tell that Jerry is rattled. He was not expecting all of this public blowback about this MIDA project at all. You can just see that in his demeanor and his tone of voice. Man is he's scared, actually. He's genuinely scared. But anyways, the actually important part of Jerry Stevenson's involvement in all of this, besides being on the MIDA board, is remember that controversy in 2024 that I mentioned with Stuart Adams and MIDA donations? Jerry Stevenson also got a donation from a MIDA-connected business to the tune of $11,000. Kind of just seems like a pay-to-play scheme for developers is going on here in Utah. Okay, we are on to our last three important characters in this story. So, good job, you made it. We're almost to the end. Let's talk about the Box Elder County Commissioners. Boyd Bingham, Lee Perry, and Tyler Vincent. These are the guys that unanimously approved the Stratos project despite thousands of people protesting during their commission meeting. You might recall that Boyd Bingham had this to say in response to protesters voicing their concerns over the world's largest data center project going up in their backyard.
For hell's sakes, grow up.
Yeah, so fuck that commissioner in particular. However, as much as I want to just get on my soapbox and pillory these guys, absolutely strawman them, I have learned quite a bit over reviewing hours and hours of commission meeting footage and picking through all of these articles that has given me a little bit more of a nuanced perspective on these three guys and their decision to approve this Stratos project. So hear me out. I'm going to lay out the facts as I understand them and then engage in just a little bit of narrativizing as to why I think they approved the Stratos project despite all the public pushback. And again, I'm going to lean on the script here for a minute. Just there's so much information here. So for context, the proposed project area includes land owned by the state, 1,600 acres, and unincorporated private land, 34,000 acres. Because it involves private land, they need the commissioner's approval to go forward with this. Well, maybe not, but I'll get to that in just a second. March 25th is when MIDA officially, formally approached the Box Elder County Commissioners about this Stratos project. And as a reminder, the first time the public really heard about this was April 22nd. So that's not that much time before everybody else learned. And my understanding, just based on how many of Utah's congressional leaders are involved, the governor's involvement, there was probably a lot of behind-the-scenes political pressure on these guys to just hurry up and approve this thing. Especially after MIDA made contact. They sound like an alien species. When they made contact on March 25th. Rather than just hurry up and approve it, they delayed the decision 2 separate times, citing a need for more information to make up their minds, more time to ask questions, that kind of thing. Meanwhile, the commissioners start working with an outside legal team, which will eventually total about $20,000 in legal fees, and try and negotiate the best deal possible for Box Elder County. This legal work is dated to have begun April 15th and ending April 20th. So things are moving really quickly, especially for a project of this size. You would not expect a project 40,000 acres to go from non-existing to being completely approved in 4 weeks. This normally takes years. So they wanted these delays so they could keep negotiating behind the scenes and also to get some of their questions answered. However, some of the questions that they got answers for, the answers were not particularly comprehensible.
We will be able to utilize revenues to, besides the national security and energy resilience that will provide our military here nationally, and as we all know here in this room, energy independence has become a national emergency, and that will help. This campus will help provide assurance for that.
Clear military mission proceeds to give one of the most unclear explanations possible.
In the event that this gets approved and we find out that because of this fast-moving situation that we wasn't able to understand all the I's and all the T's, is there any situation where we can then work through the challenges with MIDA, or are we out of luck?
We will work through this entire project together.
What does that mean?
We're in a partnership.
So on this committee, then we're going to be able to sit at a round table and hammer out the details.
That's right. With a project of this magnitude, it is not likely, but for sure, that one of you will be on the MIDA board, so you'll be able to help this. You will.
What was that? What was she even trying to express? It sounded like she was saying that they might be on the MIDA board themselves one day. God damn, this lady geeking hard. When they asked her name is Hillary Venable, by the way, from MIDA, about why the project was moving so quickly, this is what she had to say.
Why is this project move forward in such an accelerated timeline?
That is a great question, and I appreciate it. When a project like this comes along, it is very competitive, and it requires all involved to move exponentially. That's what happened with this, because we have the opportunity to come upon technology that otherwise could set us back, could set the development back multiple years, but we have the opportunity to potentially receive that equipment at a much exponential timeline, and that is why we, as a group, have moved this forward exponentially.
So apparently, the reason that they gave the commissioners for why this project simply must move at lightning speed, well, apparently those advanced closed-loop cooling doohickeys that I alluded to earlier, apparently that is a limited time offer. This is like some kind of gigantic technological Easter clearance sale deal. So if we don't move on them right now, we're gonna have to wait a few years, because other developers of data centers in other states are gonna buy up the supply, and then they're gonna have to manufacture more, and we're gonna have to wait for that. First of all, I don't buy that whatsoever. The real reason they want this to move super quickly is to avoid as much public scrutiny as humanly possible. This whole Hyperloop closed system limited time deal is just a smokescreen. Second of all, a few years? Is that it? Is that the biggest downside to waiting? What, is China's super AI just weeks away from a nuclear weapon or something? Like, a few years is nothing. Okay, let's wait a few years and figure out if we're going to destroy the entire Great Salt Lake. That's worth a few years of waiting, if you ask me. The real reason that this project can't wait a few years has nothing to do with China, has nothing to do with these advanced closed-loop systems or whatever, and everything to do with the fact that AI is just a very hot vehicle for speculative investment right now. And this bubble, this AI bubble, is about to pop, and if they wait a few years, there won't be any money in this space anymore. So that's why they're trying to ram it through as quickly as possible. Anyway, back to the commissioners. At the same meeting, the three of the commissioners also expressed frustration at being brought in at the last hour, especially on a project with such massive potential impact. And to me, the timing of those legal payments, to me, suggests that they're probably telling the truth here. And as far as MIDA's answer as to why they involved the commissioners so late in the process, I'm just gonna let Hillary speak for herself here.
MIDA has multiple projects that are presented to them daily, and either they meet the military mission or they don't, and so then they are excused. Sometimes they are due diligence is done on them a little bit longer and then excused. This one, When we learned about it mid-February, we started our due diligence under the impression that not only state legislative and also local municipalities were talked to. So as we continued our due diligence and then just determined that we wanted to move forward with this project, it was then noted that there was that aspect that was missed. We apologize and know that that is not the MIDA way. We want full transparency, and I apologize now because of the nature of the competitiveness of this project to come to Utah or to another state. That is the reason why this has been exponentially put into motion.
Honestly, that's fucking bullshit. I'm gonna explain why in just a bit, but complete bullshit. In any case, despite the immense public pushback, despite the numerous incomprehensible clarifications and assurances from MIDA, these guys eventually did unanimously approve the Stratos project. Their reasons for approving the project, at least officially, basically boil down to two things. One, there were plenty of people in Box Elder County who approved of the Stratos project. And two, if they didn't approve the project, it is likely that the project would have gone forward anyway, just without the benefits and protections that they negotiated on behalf of Box Elder County. Let's start with the first one. Gotta level with you. There is some local support for this project. It pains me to admit that, but unlike Kevin O'Leary, I'm prepared to engage with people who disagree with me in good faith and not call them Chinese sleeper cells because I'm an asshole. In the first public meeting in Box Elder County about all of this, I watched 2 hours of this meeting footage, and of the people that made public comment, 5 people expressed concerns about the project, and 8 expressed their endorsement and support of the project. So from the commissioner's perspective, at this point, most people are supporting it. The 5 people expressing concern did not necessarily say they disapproved of it, just that they had some reservations and concerns about it. So, yeah, granted, the majority is still just 8 people, but integrity demands that I concede that this is definitely a majority, at least of the people who spoke up at the meeting. And from the perspective of these people, it makes sense, like especially if they're one of the people that is selling their land to make a bunch of money. And for the people that are not selling their land but live in Box Elder County, their budget was $76 million. So $30 million in the first year, that's not nothing. That is a pretty significant investment into Box Elder County. And the developer keeps promising all the new roads and infrastructure that's going to be built is going to be paid for by the developer. Okay, you know, fair enough. Not what I would want, but it makes sense. There's at least some logic, some financial reasoning happening here. However, from this point forward, despite multiple opportunities to do so, the commissioners denied any public comment period during these meetings. So I have a feeling that 8-person majority may have not survived. There was, however, an online form that was made public that people could fill out and submit their comments that way. In their last commission meeting, the one that went super viral, where they ultimately approved the project, they said that they received a lot of comments from people against it and for it. They are suggesting that there's some kind of split divide in the feedback that they got. Some reporting from the Salt Lake Tribune, however, sheds some light on these claims. They found, of 310 comments from Box Elder County locals, 242, 68%, opposed the project. 106 comments did not approve or disapprove, but instead just expressed concerns, and then a mere 7 comments in support, not even double digits. So obviously that was just a lie to save face, to make this swallowing of this horrible hyperscale data center pill slightly more palatable. The suggestion that, you know, it was a divided issue, but there was still a significant portion of locals that wanted it. Clearly not true. Now, to their second point, that if they denied this project, it probably would just go forward anyway, and they would lose out on all of the benefits and protections that they negotiated with their legal team. I actually think that's probably true. I don't think that they should have done it, and I'll explain what I think they could have done instead, but to that point, yeah, I think they're probably right. It would probably just go ahead without them. Remember Hillary's explanation as to why the county commissioners were brought into this process so late? It's simply skipped their minds, a simple oversight. Obviously, I think that's bullshit. You want to know why I think they were brought into the process so late? Here you go.
How it works is we do not like to go, MIDA, where we're not welcome and wanted. So we, years ago, went to the legislature and said if we're going to have private land that's part of our project area in addition to military land, that we need the consent of the local government. You're the local government because it's all of this is entirely contained in unincorporated county. So we need your consent. And then number two, we need all the landowners' consent. This is not like assessments areas where you need 2/3, it's 66%. MIDA requires, and I wrote the legislation, said I want it 100%. You want all the landowners to say that, yes, they would welcome and want to be part of a particular project area. The good news is we have the consent of all of the landowners. This is about 40,000 acres spread between Locomotive Valley, Hansel Valley, and then some near the freeway. All of the landowners have signed the consent.
This is from the very first commission meeting where the Stratos project was officially made public. That guy is Paul Morris, another MIDA goon, and he just said that they already got unanimous consent from all of the private landowners within the proposed Stratos project area. So for weeks, MIDA, O'Leary Digital, and West Genco, the developer that O'Leary Digital is going to work with, quietly approached everybody that had land that they needed and bought them out, more or less. Technically, MIDA needs the consent of the local government before moving ahead on any project area in that county that involves private land. But if they already have all the private landowners' permission, it's game over. All of this land in the Stratos project area, it's unzoned, which means if Kevin O'Leary hadn't have gone this MIDA route with this data center, because he already has the landowner's permission and it's unzoned, he could theoretically go forward with this project anyway, and he'd just have to follow your standard permitting process and follow general state building guidelines. So either way, legally, I don't think there was much that the commissioners could do to actually stop the project. So I think I ultimately understand the thinking and the reasoning as far as why they decided to go forward with this project, especially considering all of the political pressure that they were probably experiencing from all the Utah state leadership. Like, you can see how Cox has been acting in public. I can only imagine what the pressure from him was like out of the public eye. However, that does not mean that I agree with their decision to ultimately surrender. Here's what I think they should have done instead. While I don't think they have any legal means to stop MIDA from going forward with this project, I still think there was a good chance that MIDA wouldn't go forward with this because of this.
We do not like to go, MIDA, where we're not welcome and wanted.
We do operate as a land use authority within our designated project areas, but we do not act unilaterally. Our involvement is structured, deliberate, and based on partnership and alignment with landowners and local leadership. If that alignment is not there, we do not move forward in the creation of a project area.
While I don't think Kevin O'Leary or MIDA or even the Utah leadership involved in this project is operating in good faith, I still feel like MIDA is not completely immune from public pressure. While they are not elected by the people themselves, many of the people on the board are elected officials, and if there is enough public outrage and outcry, they might have reason to consider pumping the brakes a little bit. I don't know if that is likely to have happened, but that's a chance I would have taken as opposed to just allowing it to go forward. And I also don't know if there would be any potential legal complications from the 12 or so landowners that have already agreed to offer up their property to the Stratos project. I think there's maybe a legal argument there that they don't have the authority to deny the project because the project area already has the consent from all the landowners involved. I don't know. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I still feel like that's a winnable fight, and also that's just delaying this whole process and hopefully giving some time for maybe some of these landowners to come back to their senses and regain their sense of shared responsibility to keep Utah looking beautiful and breathable and not sell out to horrible, stupid billionaires. So yeah, I think there's some room here where MIDA may have been forced to make a tactical retreat for a period of months or even a year. I think the next thing that I would have done was attempt to rezone all of this land so they can't just plop a giant data center on it. Again, I don't know how feasible any of this is, but Sometimes it's just about fighting the fight, and if this AI bubble is going to pop sooner rather than later, we might not have to fight the fight very long, but it's still critically important to fight the fight. And also, it's the right thing to do. I hate AI. I think AI is a blight on civilization. I think stepping up and opposing it, especially when you have the consent and the backing of the majority of your constituents, you owe it to them to fight this. So I wish they would have fought, but this is the situation. I feel like I understand why they made it. I think that was the wrong move, but I don't necessarily think they are operating on the same level of scheming malpractice that everyone else in this story is. Okay, that's chapter 2. You now know everything about the Stratos project, and you now know everything about the notable people involved in this story. And yet somehow there is still yet more information to cover, still more details to get mad about. So let's get to that and go over the timeline of events. It'll serve as a nice recap, and it'll also contextualize a lot of the information that I've been pouring all over you. You'll get an even greater appreciation for just how fast this thing moved behind the scenes as well. Chapter 3. The timeline of events so far. January 8th. Cox, Stuart Adams, Kevin O'Leary, and possibly Mike Schultz meet to discuss the hyperscale data center project. February 17th. Kevin O'Leary announces partnership with Utah real estate developer WestGenco to begin moving forward on the data center. WestGenco begins making deals with the 12 landowners in the project area. March 23rd. Cox signs into law HB 60. First introduced in December 2025, HB 60 limits the state engineer's ability to reject water right applications based on public welfare. Isn't that what laws are for? HB 60 will be effective May 6th. March 25th. MIDA formally contacts the Box Elder County Commissioners about the data center after securing consent from the landowners in the project area. Bar H, one of the private property owners in the project area, files a water right application to transfer ranching water towards the data center. April 15th. The Box Elder County Commission hires a law firm to work on a draft agreement between Box Elder County and MIDA. April 22nd, the Stratos/Wonder Valley project is first revealed to the public in Utah. The commissioners decide to delay the vote on approving the project. April 27th, Kevin O'Leary gets approval from the MIDA board for his Wonder Valley project. Box Elder County has another commission meeting with Hillary Venable, representing MIDA, and nearly 100 protesters. They decide to delay the vote a second time. There is no public comment period during this meeting. Thousands of official protests are filed online against Bar H's water rights application. April 28th, Murray Hollow LLC, another landowner in the project area, files a water rights application to transfer water to the proposed data center. April 30th, Governor Cox whines at a press conference that calls to slow the data center project is the dumbest thing ever. May 4th, Box Elder County Commissioners approved the Stratos project despite thousands of protesters urging them not to. May 5th, Brenna Williams, local badass, filed an application to overturn the Commission's approval of the Box Elder County agreement with MIDA. It's called the Box Elder County Referendum, or BEAR for short. May 6th, HB 60 goes into effect. Water right applications past this point bar the state engineer from rejecting applications based on public welfare. May 7th, Bar H withdraws their water rights application. They state that they intend to refile. May 14th, a rally takes place at the Capitol building calling for the project to be canceled and for MIDA to be dissolved. May 21st, Governor Cox declares a drought emergency in Utah. Takes another second to plug the data center again. May 23rd, a second protest at the Capitol building and against MIDA takes place. May 27th, Murray Hollow LLC withdraws their water rights application. May 29th, Cox appears to change his tone, issuing an executive order designed to protect the environment from data centers. The Box Elder County attorney rejects the BEAR referendum. Brenna Williams states her intention to appeal the decision. June 1st. Backpedaling, Stuart Adams writes a public letter to Kevin O'Leary asking for a reduction in the size of the Stratos project area by 75%. And that takes us to today, or at least the day that I finished writing the script. Congratulations, you have made it to the end, the final section of the video. Great job. Very proud of you. Chapter 4. What happens now? Well, the hyperscale data center project still needs permit approval from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality and the Department of Natural Resources. We'll also still need to obtain the water rights for the property. And luckily, it also still needs investors. It still needs some financial backing. Great forces are trying to force through and build this stupid thing, and I ain't gonna have it. If I have managed to persuade you that all of this is a very, very terrible bad idea, I have some suggestions that can help keep up the pressure and hopefully stop this Stratos project once and for all. First thing, keep informed. The faster that we can move on all of these various plots and twists and turns and developments, the better our chances are of actually stopping this thing. Follow Elevate Utah, or should I say Elevate China? They've done great work organizing and informing people about this Stratos project and other important causes across the state. They also got doxxed for their trouble, so give them a follow, give them a couple dollars in donations for their effort. They really deserve it. Alliance for a Better Utah is another fantastic local organizing group to follow. The Salt Lake Tribune has done some fantastic reporting about this entire thing, and halfway through this process of making this video, they went free. So you no longer have to pay for a subscription to get current news stories. So I think that's worth a couple bucks of donation. They were certainly massively helpful in compiling all the information that I used for this video, so give them a couple bucks. Come on. Even if you're not a Utah native, consider donating a couple bucks. These organizations are doing good work, and obviously this Stratos project is going to affect all of us when it's built. So, you know, come on. Remember that Bear ballot initiative that I mentioned earlier? They need volunteers. If you have any canvassing, volunteering, phone banking experience, sign up. If you don't, sign up. If you know somebody who does, sign them up. And who knows, maybe you'll see me out in the fields of Box Elder County because I also signed up. Kevin O'Leary has kind of forced my hand and made me get out into the public to defend my family's honor. But whatever, I would be opposed to this project anyway, but, you know, I gotta workshop the O'Leary reputation a little bit now because it's on protest signs and chants everywhere. Whatever. Next thing. We do have some elections this year. Stuart Adams, you know him, you love him. He is running for re-election. If you are watching this and you are a conservative-leaning voter in that district, pick one of the other guys. We have to show that there's some kind of consequence for just gobbling up all of these lands for a data center of all things. There has to be some kind of accountability, so I'm begging you, do not let Stuart Adams win re-election. If you are a left-leaning voter and you are in the new blue district in Utah, I need you to skip voting for Ben McAdams. He has a vested financial interest in another data center project that's happening in Utah, and I don't need any more of that shit going to DC and back again, so I also think he sucks for other reasons, but that's the only reason that's relevant to this video. Personally, I hope you vote for Nate Bluen instead. He wants to place a moratorium on data centers in the country going forward, and I think that's a great idea. I hate these things. And for the people who aren't in Utah that still want to help the resistance against the Stratos project, I implore you to keep talking as much shit as you possibly can. Your engagement, your impassioned negative feedback has helped propel this story into the national spotlight. And as somebody who's on the front lines of this thing, or at least getting involved in the front lines of this thing, having your support has been incredibly gratifying and validating to experience. It's nice to know that people give a damn, even if it's not their backyard. And the real last thing, just as a personal favor, a personal courtesy to me, please refer to Kevin O'Leary with his full name. As a fellow O'Leary, I've been catching a lot of strays, and I just can't have that. I just can't have that. I cannot tolerate that. I cannot tolerate the O'Leary family name being besmirched in this way. So if you could do that, that'd be great. If you found this video informative, which I fucking hope you have, please consider giving the video a like or a comment or subscribe to the channel. And please, 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 if you've noticed any of the information presented in this video is incorrect, leave a comment down below. If you want to share relevant information about protesting or whatever, feel free to leave those comments below. And with all that said, I'm done. I have been talking for hours. Brendan O'Leary is out of here, and may the Stratos project never see the light of day. I'm out. Peace. Blech.